sometimes it's really hard to just get going with art. You know that you want to do something and you feel that you either should or that it's what you want to do, but you just don't know where to start. And this is really true if you've got like a brand new sketchbook. That's a very common thing, isn't it? What do we do? So in this week's tutorial, we're just going to do something very, very simple. And it's one of those things that it can start simple and then become and develop into something really quite extraordinary. So we're just going to be using a square and some lines and one colour and black and white. So welcome, welcome to Art with me, Kate Field. I'm an artist, teacher, speaker, passionate about helping people get going with their art, finding their creative spirit, and just picking up that pencil and starting, making a start. Welcome back, all you lovely people who have been with me from the beginning. It's so lovely. I love your comments. I read every single one. And my apologies if I don't respond, because by the time this one goes out, I will be preparing for my trip to Canada. So that's very exciting for me because I have never been to Canada before. And yeah, so it's very exciting. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get going. So what we're going to do is create a series of squares. So I've just drawn out some squares in my sketchbook. You could use a separate sheet of paper, whatever you want, whatever's going to work for you. But the paper does need to be quite good quality. I'm using 250 gram sketchbook here, but you could also use wallpaper lining paper. That would work as well. But the paper's going to get a little bit wet, so it does need to have a little bit of substance to it. You divide the squares however you like. These are about 3.5 inches square, about 10 centimetres square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using some watercolour. You can use whatever watercolours you like. These are the Analinkis, which I love. I really do love. And I've got a list of the products that I use in the description, and you could have a look at those and see if any of those take your fancy. Now, what we're going to do is very simple, but it's so effective. And I do this exercise quite a lot with my students. And it's, well, I just think it's great. We're going to dive in straight away. Now, I'm going to do the whole thing freehand. If you want to create your squares using a ruler or a stencil or something, then you go ahead and do that. This is your project. Okay, I don't want you to just be blindly copying me. The whole point of me as an art teacher is to teach you how to develop your own creativity. So I'm putting my first little square in this box, and what we're going to do is we're going to put squares in each box. Now, some of these squares will go over the edges, and some will be bigger, some won't be quite squares because they'll be slightly on the squiffy side, and some will be closer to the middle. But the idea is that you're going to put a square in each space. Let's just put this one in the corner, I think. And let's have that one there. And let's put one there. And then a larger one down there. So, you know, they're not perfect squares, but they are almost squares, if you see what I mean. Okay, we're now going to make the tricky decision of what colour we're going to use. Because you are just going to put one colour for each square. And it might be that you want to keep your colours sort of cohesive. So let's get back to my colour wheel here. You might want to do the analogous colours, which are the ones that are close together, the warm colours and the cool colours, as I teach my children and my students. Or you could go for complementary colours which are opposite, or you could just do a whole load of random colours, which is actually what I'm going to do. And I quite often will have a colour theme and I will use a colour palette, but sometimes it's just quite nice to be a little bit random. So I have actually sprayed water on my paint, so they are quite wet. I'm going to use a soft brush with a point, and I'm just going to paint my first square. Now the idea is you're trying to get this paint as even as possible. It doesn't matter if you go over the edges, that's fine. Now that was a lovely cobalt blue in the palette, and I'm actually going to pick out another cobalt blue on this side, and you'll see why later. Let's just put that one in like this. And obviously when you're using watercolour paints, the more paint you have on your brush, the deeper the colour. So it might be you have your whole page the same colour but of different strengths. So you'll have different tones. That could look rather lovely. Okay, so that was my cobalt blue there. I'm now going to go into my turquoise blue, which is probably my favourite colour in this palette. It's a very deep turquoise and I love it. So we're getting a bit of light reflection on there, aren't we? Let me just move that a little bit. I think that might be better. I've had to put all the lights on because it's gone all cloudy. Yes, so weather update in southwest England, we're in a cloud. I live on top of a hill and by the sea, so sometimes we get, well, often we will get the sea clouds and the sea mist come in. And so it is all very, very cloudy today. And I can't really see very much at all. Right, I'm now going to go into my greens, I think. This is a lovely moss green. I think that these colours work well. Let's just sort of put those like that. And you can go over the top of these colours once they're dry. You'd have to go over with the same colour because this is watercolour, this is not acrylic. So the paint will react and you might just end up with something a bit muddy. But, who knows? This is a sketchbook. I'm just trying out new things. I know what the paint will do because I've been using this paint for a very, very long time. Right, I'm cleaning my brush completely now because I want to go into the yellow. Now, my yellow has got actually a bit muddy, but that's fine. We will work with that. That's okay. It's not an absolute vibrant yellow because it's not totally clean. There we go. So it's more like a yellow ochre, but that's okay. It's quite a nice colour. I think I'll pop that one down there as well. Like this. Quite liking that. Right. What's next? I think next has got to be purple. I'm going to do purple. Let's just move that one there. There we go. Like that. Just put that one in there. It doesn't matter if you go over the lines. That isn't important. just do this one up here. Like that. There we go. And we're going to do one more colour, and I think I'm going to do orange just to give a bit of a pop in these two down the bottom. So again, let's just pop that orange in there. Like that. And then this one. I think I might need a bit more paint on this one. Oh no, it might be okay. Might be okay. Like that. So you will end up with your little coloured squares inside your bigger squares. Okay, so these are dry. They dry really quickly. They're a little bit patchy in the colours, you can see. I'm going to leave them like that. If you want to, you could go over for a second time. Right, we're going to do the next bit. We're doing one colour and black and white. So we've got our colour. I've now got my black acrylic pen. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a piece of paper over the top there just to rest my hand on, just in case there's smudgy bits on my hand, which is quite common because I do get in a bit of a mess sometimes. I'm just going to go around the outline of the square. Very simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. It really doesn't. This is an exercise in composition and just how colours work together and what they look like and what you like. So with this first one, we're going to go from the edges and just go out. So from each corner, sorry, not an edge, we're just going to go out like this. So each square, each big square, is going to have a different type of pattern inside it, because I just want you to see the different sorts of effects that you can get by just using one colour. I've just gone all the way around with that one. I am going to do a border all the way around, but I'm going to wait until the acrylic pen is dried. Let's go on to the next one. We're going to do something a little bit different, but exactly the same technique. I'm going to go around the square. Now this time we're going to do curves and wavy lines like this. There we go. And as you see me doing these ones, I'm sure there's going to be ideas popping into your head of what you think, oh yeah, I wonder what that would look like. So that's my next one there. And there's just so many different ways and things that we could do with this idea. And I'm just going to play with some of them. So the other thing we could do, let me just do my square, is that we can break up the space like this is now into thirds, and we could do something different in each one. So for example, we could have parallel lines on this one, sort of stripes like this, and then in this one we could have something completely different. We could have like a squiggle like that, and in this one we could have zigzags like that. Do you see what I mean? We're just kind of putting ideas together for each one. And I'm going to do all of these. You can have a play of what you're going to do to see which ones are fun for you. It's just, I quite like this sort of wiggly line. Let's just sort of put those in like that. And then what I'm going to show you is how I will take this idea and develop it a little bit further. Let me just do that one like that. And how I might use it actually in a piece of art, and how I have used this very simple concept in my own professional work. So just kind of carrying on with this, having fun. Oh, can't stress enough how important it is to enjoy the process like this. So I do hope you're well. Thank you for your lovely comments. I do read every single one. But if I haven't got back to you or replied to your comment, please forgive me. I'm out and about in September. I'm away with my husband, so I don't have a lot of time, or the time that I would normally have. So I hope you bear with me on that. Here we go. I'm just gonna move my coffee out of the way, actually. Let's move on to this one. So I'm sure by now you are getting the idea. Like that. It doesn't matter if it goes out. It's not important. Right, what we're going to do with this one? Let's do some different sorts of curves. See what they look like. And some of them you will prefer to others. And again, that is the whole point of a sketchbook, to try out things that you might then develop further. So they are the 6 that I've done already. I'm going to do another 6 and then we will come back. So I finished off those ones. Now I've just started to add a few little more bits to these. Like I've just put a little dot down here. I put a little dot there because I actually spilt something on it and it created a mark, so I turned it into a dot. That's what we do. And the idea is that you're just using black and white, and in this case I'm just using a black marker pen. Actually, you could use a felt tip pen or a Sharpie or something like that, going over the top of the dried watercolour. But you can now kind of see that you could do all sorts of other things in your squares that could be quite fun. Just sort of spiraling this one in a little bit, just to see the sort of effects that you could do. And for example, so see where these lines go here. What would happen if I just sort of did some little look a bit like tunnels now, don't they? So I could shade those in. One of the reasons that I absolutely love teaching both children and adults is that the children remind me, especially the little ones, of the importance of having fun, which I think when we become adults we can forget, and we can take our art way too seriously. And a sketchbook for me is a place of experimentation, trying things out and playing. And for most people, nobody will see your sketchbook except you. unless you're one of my students, of course. And then I will expect to see your sketchbook. But that's the whole point. You know, your sketchbook isn't there open to the world unless you choose it to be. And so it is a place where you're safe and you can try out new things. And if something doesn't go right, then I suggest strongly, what I suggest to all of my students, is you write a little note on the page of what you don't like about it. What you don't do is tear it up and throw it away. No, no, no. You don't do that. There we go. Art is not about perfection. It's about learning and creativity. And if you ever get the chance to look at some of the sketchbooks from artists, either contemporary artists or classical artists, you'll see all of the mistakes. You know, take an artist like Leonardo da Vinci. If you get a chance to have a look at his sketchbooks, you'll see all the experimentations, all the things that went wrong. And this is important. So this is kind of turning into a bit of a kind of organic feel to this, like those lovely flowers I have on the verge outside my house. I'm going to put in a few dots. And you could just sort of happily play with this. This would be the sort of page that I come back to when I'm thinking about something. If I'm trying to work out something in my head, maybe completely un-art related, I might just doodle. So I'm going to leave this for the moment, and we're going to go on to the next thing. We're going to take these ideas into the next step. Just a little interruption. I'm interrupting my own tutorial because I want to tell you about membership. It's something that I've recently started, and my members will have access to content that I'm not releasing to the general public. They will have access to the Successful Artist Bootcamp and a whole load of other stuff as well. So if that's something that you'd quite like to do, the details are in the description. So I've turned over a new page in my sketchbook, and I've drawn out some more rectangles and squares. Now what I do is I just use a mount to do them, and then I make my own sort of stencil to slightly squiffy square. It's not quite perfect, and that's what I wanted. So I've put some of these where some of them overlap, some of the lines overlap. I've worked over double page, which I like to do in my sketchbook. I'm trying out ideas and thoughts, and what I'm going to do is use, where's my soft pointed brush, round tipped brush, and I'm going to go into using my paints again. And what I'm going to do now is to think about the colours that I like, the colour combinations, looking at the whole page together, thinking what works and what I like, and seeing what I do. And I think what I'm going to do is yellow, the moss green and the turquoise. And then I might just put a splash of something else in here as well. Now I'm going to do a very similar thing to what we did before. I'm going to go in with my yellow first. Actually, what I need to do is to give, oh dear, putting things down and then not finding them again. Just going to give this a bit of a squirt, just to activate the paint, wake it up. There we go. And then I'm just going to take some of these shapes and just start to apply the paint to these spaces. And this is another reason why I like the intense colours of these. But you could do ones that are very kind of washed out and pastel, very subtle. Yeah, that can work really well. I'm just going to retrieve that. Just put that on there. And I'm going to put in the yellow everywhere. So I'm just going to use yellow, just thinking about where I want to put it. Now, it works, the composition works when you have repeated elements throughout. And this is why I like to put in the same colour in various parts of it. Even though this is in my sketchbook, it will give me an idea of the composition when or if I decide to take this further and develop it into a final piece. And I think this is one of the things that people get a little bit confused about, or bogged down about, or worried about, but actually it's not that difficult. You're just going to pick out some of the spaces and put in some colour. And this is why you need to play. And why I go on about it all the time. There we go. I'm just putting in these little bits of yellow here. And I've said before that I do, if I'm going to use yellow, I do try to use it first. I try to remember that I need to use it first, because then I know there are no other colours on my brush or on my palette if I'm using tubes of paint. So the yellow is not going to become corrupted, because it will. And I do love yellow. I think it's a fantastic colour. Although I can't wear it. I can wear a little bit of yellow, but it does tend to make me look very washed out, especially as I've got older. Huh, what's all that about then? I think I'm going to do this large bit yellow as well. I'm going to have to turn my book around to do that. Let's just do that. So yeah, don't be afraid of turning your book around. And seeing what things look like upside down. My old art teacher, when I was at school and when I was at college, my art teachers used to, a couple of them would say this: turn it upside down, Catherine, see what it happens, see what it looks like. There we go. So you can see this yellow is fading a little bit. I quite like that. I might do that. Once it's dry, I could do another coat if you want a bit more of the intense colour. But again, if it goes over the edges, that doesn't matter. Right, I'm just going to turn that round like that. And now I'm going to do the moss green. I really do love this colour. I love this colour combination of green and yellow. I mean, oh dear, I am a very blue and purple girl actually, but I do like to come back to this as well. And so all I'm doing is same as I was doing before with the yellow. I'm just taking some of the squares and putting in a bit of block colour. Now, I'm doing this with watercolour. You could do this with whatever you have. You could do it with acrylic paint. You could do it with felt tip pens, gel pens, whatever you want, colouring pencils, all sorts of things. Right, I am now going to go into the turquoise. Now, the turquoise is very vibrant, so I'm kind of thinking about what spaces I want to do. I'm definitely thinking about this middle bit. But because it is right in the middle of my book, I am going to need to be a little bit more careful. But I definitely want to do this square and probably that one. Some squares will be left blank, as you will see a little bit later. So again, I've put some spray, water spray onto the paint. And I'm just going to go in with this. Don't worry if the paint goes into the next square. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. There we go. Yeah, this is a very good exercise in practicing doing edges with your paintbrush and trying out what paintbrush works best for you, because I'm using a round-ended brush. I will sometimes use a flat brush to do edges, especially if I'm working with acrylic paint. But again, it's not whether something's right or wrong, it's whether it's right for you, whether it works for you. I can't kind of stress that enough, actually. I'm going to do this large one down here. Let me just move that up a little bit. And then I'm going to turn my book round to do that other one. So let's just do your edges first. Like that. And one of the things that can happen and will happen is you'll get a drip. Like, I don't know whether you can see that. I'm going to zoom in. That little drip can cause chaos. And if you can see it coming, you can just remove it. Because if it drips where you don't want it, then that is annoying. It's not the end of the world. We can sort out mistakes. And mistakes are natural and an important part of creativity. And the creative bit is, what do you do if a mistake or an accident has happened? How can you retrieve retrieve the piece? And oh, I will show you some of the things that I do if things go wrong. Or a bit like on the previous page where I had a dot. A splodge landed on that orange, so I just turned it into something else. There we go. Now that's kind of fading. I might do another layer on it. Let me just do that. Let me see that on the camera. There we go. I do love this turquoise. And I do wear turquoise, like my necklace today. Just simple wooden beads. I love picking up jewellery made by local people. And I pick up jewellery from second-hand shops as well. Right, I'm now going to turn the whole thing round. Because I want to do this bit here. There we go. Start off here. Now the water will run down because of the middle bit of the book. Let's just do that. And one of the, I think the common, that doesn't sound quite the right word. One of the things that people have said to me is that they are afraid of things going wrong. And with my adult classes, I have this as well. And certainly when I'm working with young people and some children as well, sadly. And they're just frightened of doing something in case it goes wrong. And I say the same thing over and over again, is that part of being an artist and part of being creative is finding solutions for when things go wrong. So if something happens in your piece, then, and then you don't like it, or a mistake has happened, how are you going to resolve it? You know, you don't resolve it by screwing it up and throwing it in the bin, do you? You resolve it by looking at it and thinking, okay, that was unexpected. What can I do with that? So this is kind of like fading out here. I might leave that. I'll leave it to dry, see what it looks like. If I don't like that, then I'll go over the top of it. I'm going to do one more turquoisey one, I think. I'm going to do that here. There we go. Ooh. So I did a tutorial a couple of weeks ago where I was writing out lines of poetry. And on camera, I made an absolute classic spelling mistake because I was talking, as I am now, while I was working. I wasn't concentrating, and I didn't notice the error until I was editing. And I thought, that's interesting. What am I going to do now? So I then recorded an extra bit for the end to show you what I did when I realised I'd made the mistake. Let's just pop that one in there. Like that. So I am going to leave that to completely dry, which won't take very long. I'm going to have a cup of coffee and then I'm going to come back and show you the final bit. So all my spaces are dry now and I like this kind of patchy effect. So I'm just going to leave that like that, but of course you could do another colour on top. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use my fountain pen. I love using fountain pens. I use them a lot. I've got a whole variety of different sorts of inks that I really like to use, and I'm going to be using the Diamine Shimmering Seas, which I haven't given it a shake yet, but you can see it's got gold on the bottom and you give it a shake. And I'm just using my Jinhao fountain pen. I'll put the links below and you can take a look at those if you like. And what I'm going to do is to start to go round the edges. Now with this ink, this is a very, very dark blue, which probably looks black on the screen. But what happens when it dries, the gold shimmer comes through and I love it. But you don't have to use this. You could use a black fine liner pen, you could use a biro or an acrylic pen or a Sharpie pen or something like that. There's always an alternative. But I use a fountain pen to write with. When I'm writing my books, I've written a few books over the years, and I always do my draft outlines by hand. But that's probably because I'm quite old. What about you? Do you like using a pen, or do you prefer to do things electronically now? Obviously I do lots of things electronically as well, but there's something just really lovely about the physical aspect of writing, and writing with a fountain pen as well, even though it does get a bit messy. And you have to be careful not to go over or lean on top of it until it's dry. So I'm going around some of these spaces, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to put some patterns. I'm actually going to shade in some of these, and when this dries you will see the shimmery gold. Just going to put a few in so you can kind of see the idea, because I probably won't finish this because it's in my sketchbook, so it's just an idea. But I am actually really liking it. So I think this is going to be something maybe in a month or so I will develop further and put onto a larger canvas. I've got an exhibition in February. That's my next exhibition, February 2025. So I might do something for that one. So you can get the idea of where we're going with this. So very similar to our original experiments, and I'm now just sort of refining it a little bit. Again, just thinking what could look quite good. I'm going to just put some little dots down in this bit. And yeah, if you're not sure on what you want to do, then this is just an absolutely brilliant exercise to do, because you can try out different things. And then you could just sort of annotate around it of the things that you liked and the things that you didn't like, the things that you thought that you think work and the things that you think don't work. And you can just sort of have a bit of a play. So I don't know whether you noticed that. I had actually intended that to be a straight line, but it went seriously wobbly. So I thought, okay, I will just put some wiggly lines in it instead. And that's what you can do. You try out different things and see what happens. We go. And I like to repeat some of the motifs in the same way that on the previous page we repeated some of the colours and some of the squares. I'm going to put this little horizontal stripe in here to echo this one. Because I think that when we have these repeated elements, it brings a cohesion to the work. So you can see how that's kind of building up. Now I actually quite like, so this was the mistake, which I do actually quite like. And I think I'm going to do something similar. Let's just make sure that's in view here. Now the ink feels different on the paint to when it's just on a page. And again, it's another way of you understanding the materials that you're using. And then with these little dots, let's pop some dots down here. Make sure you can see those. Like that. When we get to the kind of what I call the decorating bit, that's when you can let your mind go on a little bit of a wander, or you could listen to some music or something like that. So I might do a few more on that page, but I think that's given you a starting point. It's given you an idea of the sort of things that you could do from a starting point of one square inside another square with one colour and black and white. I did a few more little kind of contours and some more of the black dots, and then I just saw this bit in the middle where the dark and the light were sort of contrasting, and I thought I would do a little bit down there like that. I really hope you enjoyed that tutorial and that you've got lots of ideas of the things that you could do to develop some of these as well. And I really look forward to hearing your comments If you haven't subscribed yet and this is something that you would like to do, that would be really nice. And all of those sorts of things. And write a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you're going to do. What colours you're going to use. That would be really good. And if you'd like to see some more, you could look at this one or this one. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.